Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. Thank you for taking time out of your day to check the video out. We have more PlayStation news, rumors, and leaks to go over and cover here today. So do me a favor before we dive into these topics. If you end up enjoying the video or finding it informative, be sure to leave it a like. And if you are new here to the channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button as well. We're starting here talking about some Hogwarts Legacy sales data. It's looking very, very good for this title. This is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and it says the data has started rolling in, and Hogwarts Legacy sales are off to an excellent start. Despite ongoing controversy surrounding the game, Hogwarts Legacy's physical sales are 80% higher than Elden Ring at UK retailer, with the game yet to release on PS4. According to GamesIndustry.biz, Hogwarts Legacy is now the UK's biggest Harry Potter game launch of all time, a record previously held by 2001's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. Download data has yet to be revealed, but digital sales are also expected to be strong. Platform split of sales reveals that Hogwarts Legacy's PS5 version sold the most copies, 82%, compared to Xbox Series X's 18%. However, download data is expected to somewhat narrow that gap, as the digital-only Xbox Series S is a popular console in the UK. And charting at number 2 after Hogwarts Legacy in the UK is still God of War Ragnarok. So yeah, this is looking really good for Hogwarts Legacy. I've been saying for a little while now that, regardless of what anybody has to say about this game, it's likely going to sell very, very well. And I think it is certainly impressive to see just how well it's doing. Also considering the fact that, as it points out, the last gen versions of this game haven't released yet. So to me, that's very, very impressive. And it's also kind of crazy to look at the physical copies and seeing that 82% were sold on the PS5. That is a large number. Now, obviously, this is just the UK. You do have to wonder if, it's basically doing the same thing in other regions or something very similar. We will have to wait and see if we get that data at another time. Moving on from that, we're talking about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We're talking specifically about why a PS4 version is not happening. Apparently, it's due to hardware limitations. Coming from PlayStation Lifestyle, they say Star Wars Jedi Survivor PS4 and Xbox One versions aren't possible due to the console's hardware limitations. This is what Respawn Entertainment has revealed. This was to be expected at this point in the PS5's life cycle, but in a new interview, the game's director has shed more light on what exactly the limitations are. Speaking to Play Magazine in the March 2023 edition, the director said that Jedi Survivor PS5 and Xbox Series X versions take advantage of the console's processing power and faster, larger memory. As a result, Respawn is able to create larger maps, add more detail and density, and offer more NPC and enemy variety, among other things. Jedi Survivor also takes advantage of the DualSense. Bottom line, we learned quickly that we could take advantage of the faster processors, larger/faster memory, better loading times, etc. to create much larger maps with more detail, greater density, broader enemy/NPC variety, and overall fidelity. This new generation allows us to do exactly that, and I believe it translates to a true next-gen experience in the Star Wars universe. So yeah, it's always nice to hear developers talk about how they're taking advantage of the new features and the power of these current gen consoles. I feel like it's not something we've heard enough, frankly, and that's because the cross-gen life cycle has been somewhat artificially extended due to the supply shortage, of the consoles. And now that that's coming to an end and we're entering the third year of these consoles being out, it makes sense that we're going to start to see a lot less cross-gen and just a lot more current-gen only titles. And with that, I'm always interested to hear about, how these developers are leveraging these new features. And, I gotta say, this is a game I'm very much looking forward to, Star Wars Jedi Survivor, and the fact that it isn't cross-gen definitely appeals to me. Everything I've seen of this game so far looks really, really good. I thought the last game was amazing, and so I'm definitely going to be, paying attention to how much better this version is compared to the last one, considering the last one was actually a PS4 game first. So definitely exciting. Let me know your thoughts on that. Next up, we're talking briefly about Forspoken, as we're getting some sales data Says here from PlayStation Lifestyle, Forspoken sales don't appear to be off to a great start. The game is already being outpaced by Dead Space Remake at retail and Hi-Fi Rush on Steam. Now Sony has revealed that it didn't really do well in January 2023's PlayStation Store download charts either. With just 4 days on the market, Dead Space was the second most downloaded PS5 game in the US and Canada, and the fourth most downloaded game in the UK and Europe. Forspoken, which released 3 days prior to Dead Space, debuted at number 7. So it continues by saying it's unusual for a PS5 console exclusive to debut so low in the charts and to be beaten to the top by older games. In January, the unstoppable GTA 5 was number 1 in both regions. Not sure how that is, but that's what it is. And it's followed by games like Modern Warfare 2, FIFA 23, NBA 2K23. It is worth noting that thanks in part to the success of the HBO show, The Last of Us Part 1 has re-entered the top 10 in both US, Canada, and in UK and Europe. So yeah, it's not looking too great for Forspoken. I don't necessarily know if we can call it like a flop. We don't know because we don't know what the expectations were, but there's no doubt that I think this game coming in at number 7 and being beaten by a game that came out a couple days after it, towards the end of the month, it's not the best look for Forspoken. So there you go. Figured I would update you guys. Moving on from that, though, we're talking about something that is not necessarily directly related to PlayStation, but I think it's important enough to highlight considering a lot of what Sony has been saying, specifically, the likes of Jim Ryan and talking about the business model that PlayStation is sticking with. I have an article here from PlayStation Lifestyle, and the title says, Xbox Game Pass hurts sales, Microsoft finally admits. They say in a reveal that shocks nobody, Microsoft has revealed that Xbox Game Pass causes sales of games on the service to decrease. The reveal comes about thanks to the provisional report from the UK Competition and Markets Authority that was produced due to the ongoing investigation into the Microsoft and Activision Blizzard merger and goes against statements from Phil Spencer himself. The report states the following when it comes to Xbox Game Pass. Quote, Microsoft also submitted that its internal analysis shows a redacted percentage decline in base game sales 12 months following their addition on Game Pass, end quote. This has long been speculated to be the case, but this report via gamesindustry.biz provides the first official confirmation of the reality of the situation. This is in sharp contrast to previous statements by Phil Spencer in an interview with levelup.com. And for those wondering, Phil Spencer in that interview talked about Forza Horizon 4 as well as State of Decay 2, essentially saying that when games are put into Game Pass, it actually leads to more sales of the game. That's actually what he said word for word, that it will actually lead to more sales of the game. So it's certainly interesting to be getting this directly from Microsoft themselves. They are the ones saying that it led to a decline in base game sales following their addition onto Game Pass. And I feel like most people aren't going to be surprised by this because that's kind of what common sense dictates, right? That if a game is made available through a subscription service that's really cheap to gain entry into, chances are most people are going to choose to access the game through that subscription service rather than buy it for full price. This really, again, shouldn't be surprising to anybody, but I think why this is important to highlight, I mean, that can just overall be damaging. So it's certainly very, very interesting and I think very telling to be getting this from Microsoft directly. And that's the big thing I have to emphasize here because, you're going to see people that are going to try to say that this isn't true. This is made up. This is a lie. No, this is actually directly from Microsoft themselves. So there you go. Had to make sure to cover that. But next up, we are talking about how the PS5 is beginning to seriously dominate the competition. Now, I know some people are going to think that this is like some console war stuff. It's actually not. We're talking about sales data, factual numbers, but in my opinion, they paint a pretty clear picture. This is reading from PlayStation Lifestyle, and they say PS5 console sales increase in January 2023, Xbox declines. While PS5 console sales in the US experienced growth in January 2023, other platforms, including Xbox, have experienced a decline according to the latest NPD figures. Matt Piscatella, executive director for the NPD Group, released data on US consumer spending for video game content, hardware, and accessories for the month. Compared to last year, hardware spending was flat at $393 million, while content and accessories spending fell, leading to an overall 5% decline in sales. While Piscatella does not have any specific numbers on how much each platform has risen or fallen in sales, he shared on Twitter, quote, growth in PlayStation 5 and Switch hardware spending was offset by declines across other platforms, end quote. He continues in another tweet, quote, PlayStation 5 was the US market's best-selling hardware platform of January 2023 in both unit and dollar sales, with Switch ranking second across both measures, end quote. A 14% drop in accessories spending was mainly due to consumers choosing not to spend on gamepads, though the PS5 DualSense Midnight Black controller was the best-selling accessory for the month in terms of dollar sales. Now, where this gets even more interesting is we have even more data that's being revealed by Christopher Dring from GamesIndustry.biz. He tweets out, across European markets in January, PS5 sales were up 202%. Compared to the year before, when there were big stock shortages. PS5 was the #1 console last month. Switch falls to #2. Sales were down 11% compared with January 2022, while Xbox Series S and X are at #3. Sales are down 32%. So I had to be sure to include this data as well, because a 202% increase is absolutely insane, especially when you consider that the other two consoles are actually declining and their main competition, that being Xbox, is actually coming in at third place. That is pretty telling in my opinion. And honestly, what this is indicating is, now that the PS5 is readily available for anybody to purchase and there's no more shortage across the board, and that's not just for the PS5, that's for all consoles, including Xbox and the Nintendo Switch, we're starting to get, I think, an early look at just how dominant the PlayStation 5 is potentially going to be. I feel like it's a little bit different when you look at the Nintendo Switch. A lot of people are anticipating that, in the not too distant future, Nintendo's going to announce the, Switch's successor. But man, when you look at how things are going when it comes to Xbox, again, just to highlight it, not for console war purposes, but just to point out, like, the major difference here, 202% increase year over year for PS5, negative 32% decrease for Xbox year over year. Absolutely insane. It's going to be really interesting, in my opinion, to see if this continues or if things start to kind of level out. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you did enjoy it. I hope you found it informative. If you did, be sure to leave it a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, hit the bell notification icon, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.